Today on Silver Screen Queens, we are covering Frankenhooker by Frank Henenlotter. A medical school dropout loses his fiancée in a tragic lawnmower accident and decides to bring her back. Unfortunately, he was only able to save her head, so he goes to the red light district in the city and lures prostitutes, parentheses, sex workers, end parentheses, into a hotel room so he can get parts for his girlfriend. Starring Patty Mullen, James Lawrence, Joanne Ritchie, J.J. Clark, and Helmar Augustus Cooper.
All right, witches, strap in, because if you haven't put this together yet, this movie is about to get spoiled. So get ready.
Hello, I am Stephanie, and today I had several phone calls and Zoom meetings and then immediately washed my face and I wanted to take a nap. Let's be real. That was the day.
I'm here for it. My name is Emily, and my new favorite thing is quarantine lipstick.
Oh.
And it's when you have like a video call or a chat or something, and you want to wear lipstick, but it's a lipstick that you hate wearing in real life because it wears off too quickly.
Oh.
But you can check yourself constantly in the forward-facing camera and reapply as necessary so you're not looking a fool. I'm wearing ELF lipstick today because it doesn't stay on for shit, but it's beautiful.
Hello, I am Blaine, and today I was feeling my legs and I thought I was petting my dog. So that's good.
Ooh, yep.
Now, I know that it's a randomly selected, but I like to think that Blaine single-handedly chooses our direction. She is our filmographer. She chooses.
Yeah, for sure.
And
that's how it is in my head.
When she puts a film in our list, I think to myself, Blaine wants me to experience this.
Yep.
And then I watch it and I cry. This movie, and I don't know about you guys, I had never seen it.
No. I watched this once
when I was drunk.
Nice.
Okay. We have gone to horror conventions and monster cons, and this is a common film that would have like an actor from that film at one of these events. I kind of feel like that's this kind of movie. So
it's got a cult following too.
Yeah.
The movie was a hard flop with a budget of $2.5 million, grossing $205,000. Is that true?
How crazy is that budget?
Yes.
That's such a discrepancy.
This
is the guy who made Basket Case.
2.5 million and 205 gross. And that's fucking worldwide gross.
Okay, it's a little more expensive because it was the 90s, so it was shot on film, which is by nature more expensive, but not to that degree.
No, even in watching it, I don't see that budget represented. I don't. I forgot to mention in the intro, the tagline of this film is a terrifying tale of sluts and bolts.
Yikes.
Just wanted to say.
So, as you might have guessed, the creator of this, Frank Henenlotter, he made Basket Case, and that's how he was able to convince the studio to give him the money to make this. And so that's how he got the budget he did. He also made up the story for this when pitching it on the spot. So they were like, yes, you're in. Do it. Take all the money and make it. So this was also his first SAG film, which meant that all of the sex workers were supposed to be SAG actresses. However, a lot of the actresses that were pulled for this were a little sketchy on the nudity required. He also said they were either sketchy on nudity or, he quote unquote, you wouldn't want to see them naked. So
I want to see them all naked.
Right? So when he decided that he only wanted sex workers he would fuck on screen, he decided to actually go and find actual sex workers.
Great.
A lot of the sex workers you see were sex workers at the time. And so because they were in the film, they were immediately signed as SAG actresses.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's kind of fucking awesome. But
so there's some little roundabout justice there.
The gratuitous tits in this film are what I would expect from an 80s B horror film, faux show.
Oh,
absolutely. Yeah. If I were playing a drinking game and I was doing like drink for tits, I would be deceased.
One more interesting thing, just on the SAG thing. Do you know if that was retroactive to cover the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a rule in SAG that if you're in a room with smoke, they have to pay you like an extra $200 a day.
Oh, there's no fucking way.
And just like think about this movie for a second, because this film took 12 years to make. It was over the course of 12 years.
Can you believe that?
Wow.
So like every day that they shot in smoke, he had to just hemorrhage money in back pay, which is
this
amazing.
is the threat level midnight of horror movie.
I am almost embarrassed to have the knowledge that this fucking film took 12 years to make. That hurts my feelings. This film is basically if you took Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and Saw and Serial Mom and you made them a fuck baby.
I will say this movie has some soft orgies.
Yep.
Yeah, it does.
Oh my God. Okay. So you do not get a moment's rest. Like,
No,
you know,
right.
some movies, they ease you. It's like he went in your ass first, you know?
Yeah.
You had no clue what's coming. Opens to this dude lobotomizing a brain and with an eyeball in it in a pot of purple Jell-O in a kitchen.
Apparently the shot is an homage to advertisements for The Brain That Wouldn't Die, which is a 1962 horror movie. I think that's why they threw it in your face so quickly, but like without any foreplay.
No. It's heavy-handed on all of the references and all of the
Yes.
insults it's throwing are like intentional, which sort of makes you feel better, but not really till the end when you get your vengeance, so to speak.
Right.
Yeah.
He looks like Jeffrey Dahmer, by the way.
And his
He
name's
does.
Jeffrey.
The imagery of like there's this brain, he is playing with it with this little knife, like it's a scalpel, I guess what it's called. But then he goes to lobotomize it even further because the eye's not moving, and you just pan to his toolbox.
Yep.
And
Yes.
I'm like, what? And
Yep.
it turns out he's a fucking electrician
Yep.
who should have been a doctor.
Oh, God. And then the mother-in-law comes in and says, "Excuse me, Jeffrey, can I have the ketchup? Because he's at a fucking birthday party."
This is the reality we are introduced to.
And he is very quickly made out to be a mad scientist.
It's not even his house.
No! You had to bring a brain to a barbecue. And we didn't mention that the eyeball, the thing he has it hooked up to like a television, like a little closed circuit TV, so he can basically see that the brain and the eye are somehow cogent and can recognize shit. Because he's like, follow my hand, follow my hand. They're having this epic backyard birthday party for the patriarch of the family. And the mother that asked Jeffrey for the ketchup goes outside. Her daughter is out there, and you get to meet your main character, Elizabeth. She is clearly wearing a very shitty fat suit.
Right?
And it's not even a good, it's like, it looks like pillow fluff.
Yeah. They just put her in a jumpsuit 2 sizes too big and then just put some like insulation in there.
Yeah.
And there's still a waist though. That's what I don't understand. Because I genuinely didn't understand that she was supposed to be in a fat suit. No diet works. And I was like, it clearly does.
She's,
Like,
wait,
you
let's
look
just be clear.
amazing.
She's saying no diet works, and she is not more than an 8 or a 10.
Oh.
So every 2 seconds, you can already tell everyone's giving her shit. She's eating a pretzel. She's not eating like a stick of butter. She's eating a pretzel.
I don't get it.
And the mom is like, ease up on the pretzels. Did anybody else have any issue knowing this was Jersey? I felt like New Jersey the second the friend comes over and it's like, how you
Yep.
doing? And then she says, I've tried pills, I've tried powder. Jeffrey stapled my stomach. And is he not he's a doctor? And she's like, no, he was kicked out of every medical school, but we're getting married, so why not? So basically tomorrow Travis and I have scheduled, I'm getting my nose job, just letting you guys know. We're married, so
fucking ridiculous. And she just says it so casually.
Well, and especially in the reality that this movie creates, every single thing that is said is fact. Like everybody just accepts it and runs. Like,
cool, got it. Let's roll.
Yeah, like nobody has a problem. It's fine.
Well, and I think the biggest thing where we see that is we cue back to the brain, and nobody has asked. We have not learned whose brain this is, whose eye is this. Where is
and we don't
this
learn
brain?
it.
We
never do. But we see the brain again.
So she says he is a bioelectrotechnician, because that's not a real thing. He's trying to fix the brain is like not properly braining. So he bangs on it with a fucking hammer.
Oh
and
my
just
God. So it's George's birthday.
Yes.
The daughter, Elizabeth, is like, oh, Daddy, you're going to be so excited. Jeffrey made you a special gift. And they unveil a lawnmower that is so modified it looks like a snowblower. Super weird. And then a remote control. And she's like, you don't even have to leave the house. Let me show you how to use it by running over my dumb self with it. So that's what she does. And then it runs over her and you see her, like, her blood splat
Everywhere.
over a lovely garden gnome.
So I had to rewind through the credits several times, not intentionally because no one would ever do that, but because I was watching a really bad version of this. He's basically blueprinting, trying to bring his girlfriend back to life by creating a mathematical solution with a series of circles and squares, all the while talking about all of her flaws he wants to get rid of. Like, I gotta get rid of that mole.
Also, there's a tripwire under the left boob. Did you see that?
Yep. He's like, I'm going to get shocked if I do this. And is like crossing shit out. It's a full
20 minutes.
7.5 hours.
Oh, man. And then after the credits, you see a photo of her face. In the photo of her face, she appears dead. It's her autopsy. But so he took a picture of her dead face because he didn't have a live picture of her.
And how couldn't he have made the picture of the head bigger to be proportionate?
I wanted that to be how she turned out.
Yes,
I thought that was going to be the whole joke. Like, I was like, that'd be fucking hilarious that she has these huge round titties, like size 10.5 feet, man hands, and then like a tiny Barbie head.
After this a whole 4 hours, for some reason, he has decided that he had to hide a tape about the news story about her death in a book, even though that's not weird to have that.
It's a copy of Grey's Anatomy, which he could have used. Like, that's the one book he shouldn't have defaced.
You are the smartest person alive that you fucking... How the fuck did you see that? God damn.
I have subtitles on.
God damn. It says the book name?
I think it says, like, ripping pages of Grey's Anatomy. Because at some point
God.
he like,
I am missing out on life not having subtitles.
Girl,
I'm serious.
Subtitles.
Puts the tape on to watch the news segment about his dead fiance, and it says, this girthful fiance was tossed
fucking
like
news story.
Tossed like a human salad. And I was like, rude. Second of all, I would love a salad right now.
So I always watch these really inebriated. That's like my thing with these, because that's how you enjoy a B-rated horror movie. So did not get that she was supposed to be fat. I thought the mom was just mean.
Yes.
So I thought, like, oh, she just lives in this universe where, like, everyone's pressuring her. And I thought it was, like, more substance where, like, obviously there was none. So I didn't get it when people kept calling her girthy and shit. I was like, why?
They were trying so hard to make fun of her, and you'll see, and it's continued. It's a trend in this whole movie of talking shit about fucking women. Like,
and that's how you know it was made by men. Because, make her fat, skinny, though.
But skinny fat. But it's fat enough that we can still yell at her. But also, did anyone catch that the news station was called 8 News Alive?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Dead woman tossed like a human salad. 8 News Alive.
And just the language in that fucking news story. Like, I love the kitsch in this movie so much.
It's funny because when we watch these kinds of movies, I feel like I know you guys very well and I know how you're going to react to certain movies. And I already in my head, like, I'm waiting to prove my own self right. Like, I'm like, mentally, I'm like, am I going to be right? Am I right? Did I know? Did I get this? The mother of Jeffrey was contracted by Marlboro.
Oh
my!
But here's the thing.
God.
The mom was deeply ill while filming.
No. Oh my God.
So, like, she actually wasn't able to speak. So she ended up having to go back later and, like, re-record her audio. But at the same time, it was still like, girl, when are you going to quit? Like,
well, damn, I feel like an asshole, but she still sounds like the Marlboro Man. That was pretty rough. So she comes into his room and he has put the memories of 8 News Alive away. And she's like trying to get him to go on dates. And at this point, we don't assume it's been that long. And she's like, life goes on. The brain and the eyeball are in the fucking fish tank. Jeffrey says, I am antisocial and dangerously amoral. And this is the understatement of the decade.
Do you want a sandwich?
Yes.
Like, she doesn't know how to handle it. So she's like, food is love. Right. Food is love. Do you want a sandwich?
You want
and I'm
food?
like, technically, that's all of us as couples in quarantine. He says, I'm descending into this sheer void of utter madness. She's like, you want a sandwich?
I am Jeffrey and my husband is the mom.
Doug's like, hey, we got pizza fries. And I'm like, leave it at the stoop.
In watching this, if this movie had in any way had a different tone and had not been intended as a almost like a tongue-in-cheek, like satirical fucking dark comedy, it would have been a terrifying serial killer movie.
Yes.
If it had a different
I want
tone.
to be remade.
Think about it, like a guy who literally, like, his girlfriend dies and he wants to bring her back together by putting her with other people's parts.
I do feel like it's just a shitty Reanimator.
There are some questionable scenes in that movie that I was like, nope. I listened to a podcast, Barbara Crampton went over like the making of that and how like the entire making of it, even like during those really explicit, really traumatic scenes, like there was someone on set with her the entire time, like making sure she was okay. It is called Switchblade Sisters.
Oh, that's cool.
So whenever the mom first comes in, first of all, I thought he was in a psych institute.
Yes.
Right. Yep,
and I thought that specifically because when the mom opens the door, there are fucking flowers that are like the most disgusting flowers on the wall. They're not like this floral print or anything like that. They look like they're in all primary colors.
Yeah.
And they are just big like crayon drawings of flowers on them. So I just thought, oh, cool. He is in an asylum or something like that. But no, it's his mother, and it's just the weirdest fucking shit.
It's worse
like,
than an asylum.
Makes sense.
It's Mom's house. He is the equivalent of the wedding singer if the wedding singer were clinically insane. In what House Hunters episode does a garage have an opening, like a ceiling that opens with a light?
They do have a cute ass house though.
He has a lab in the garage, and
oh my God,
he's clearly stolen everything from his bioelectrotechnician job. He then proceeds to do what you think he's going to do at that point, which is there's a fridge, and in the fridge there's purple water, and in the purple water pulls out, guess what? Elizabeth's fucking head. And he proceeds to have dinner with her head and her foot and her arm. It's like what's left if a tiger eats you and it shits some things out. Like, that's what's left. It actually was Carol Baskin's husband in this film. And he's feeding her wine and talking to her, and it's this really bad. And knowing the budget, that's a really bad fake doll head.
For the 90s, that budget really should have gotten them a whole lot more. Filming on film is expensive, but $2.5 million gets you better effects. We watched a movie from 1999 that was filmed in 8 days, and it had better effects.
Think about the fact that they had a hotel, they had a house, but they didn't have anything that I would imagine as super high budget, like filmed on the streets in New York.
It might cost that much because they had to retro pay all those actresses SAG wages.
Let's hope.
So on IMDb, you know how they have like the goofs section? The only thing written here that I saw at first was it's often thought that the poor production value is a goof, but it's not. It's intentional. And I was like, I'm sorry.
IMDb just burned them. If I fucked up, I'd be like, I meant it that way.
Joke.
This is the scene where we get into the hard-hitting body shaming of women nonsense.
As he is eating dinner with her severed head, he asks her to imagine herself as a centerfold goddess in his mom's basement.
Picture yourself kneeling on mom's couch. And I said, this date smacks hard.
He also wrote her a very terrible poem. Jesus Christ. Do you want to be a poet? Do you want to be a surgeon? Or would you prefer to just stick to your electrician duties? Because the latter is really what's up.
The poem reads like Joe Pesci in Goodfellas reading a sonnet.
Heavy on the whole foreshadowing. So it's about exploding with love, like an aerosol can.
He puts her body parts back in the fish tank, and he's talking to the drawing, and he says, he's trying to amp himself up. He's like, somebody's got to die for her to live.
He watches the Mad Scientist news network.
This news forecast, what did you guys, that remind you of?
God. That was the most random fucking shit.
Right, it's like Doc from Back to the Future if Doc was really into meth.
And the morgue.
and the more
Yeah.
and meth and death.
Meth and Death. Oh, that's a good band name. Is anyone else terrified by his extreme ease of sliding into a terrifying monologue? He says, some people need drugs, some people need booze, and some people just
Right?
need a little surgical assistant.
Oh my god, we need to talk about this fucking drill.
I was like, well, I'm all in now, I guess.
He says that relaxation is the key and then decides to drill into section 22 of the brain. That's not what a lobotomy is. A
He
lobotomy
says
is severing the two halves of the brain.
He keeps saying it, and I'm like, that's not a lobotomy, bro.
He kept saying it's relaxation. Did he think he was like somehow relaxing himself, or was he like killing the guilt center?
He seems like it gives him fucking creativity. He literally takes a drill, gets a drill bit out of a bowling
idea.
bag, and then he drills his head, and he's like, oh, yeah, great idea. Like, that's like you're gonna fucking come because you're drilling your head like a fucking porn star.
Right?
Where's the blood? Where's
Yeah,
the
what?
fucking blood? There's no effects.
$2 million. One drip. One. A little one.
He gets an idea as he's lobotomizing himself, and he's like, oh, if I need body parts, though, I'll go buy their body parts, the people that want to sell them, and immediately you're like, you son of a bitch. And he says, I have my Christmas Club account.
Female body parts, and I'll buy female body parts, and then devises his plan to, kill sex workers. This is 25 minutes into the movie.
It's very evident that they're just trying to fill time. Like, that's why the movie is only 85 minutes. That's why we've got so much fucking footage of him, like, filling out a coloring book
And
of
talking.
a woman's genitals. Like, it's crazy. Definitely
Like me.
looks like Dahmer in this scene.
He looks like Dom.
You know who he looks like? He
Who?
looks like Dana Carvey doing an impression of
Oh, oh my god! He
Right?
does. He drives to New York and he's scoping out all the sex workers, and the whole time he's like, "Oh, look at those legs. Look at that butt. Oh, I don't like that. Oh, this is a great street, but like a fucking Chinese buffet."
Yeah.
So, fun fact, while he's doing all of this and you see all of these alleys, those are actually real sex workers. They were just going down one neighborhood in New York at the time and just filming the streets. So, like, those are all actual sex workers or actual, like, women. We don't know that they're sex workers or anything like that.
If you're making money on their image, fucking pay them. That's their whole thing.
Right. He pulls up to one of the sex workers and he's like talking to her, and he pulls out a wad of fucking money. Like, that Christmas Club account you must have sucked a bunch of dicks for that Christmas account, because that's a lot of money. She pulls her tits out right then and there, and this is the first full frontal titties we get. She calls over her friend Amber, who takes a very quick 45-minute saunter over.
Oh my god. It took her forever.
They tried to do it like the slow-mo scene in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Yes.
And except they didn't slow-mo it, they just did it normal, and she
No.
just walked
They
really
were just
far
like-
forever.
They didn't have the money to do slow-mo. They were like, just
No.
walk real slow.
You need another $500,000 for that slow walk. He's saying he needs like 6 or 7 girls for his party, and you know why, because basically we're under the impression now he needs these fucking body parts for his girlfriend. The tattoos that all these sex workers have from their pimp.
Brand. Yeah.
It's a scar.
Yeah.
So they go into this bar. In this film, this is in the 90s. This scene, they do their best propaganda, and it's exaggerated. You're in this bar, and then you're in a bathroom, and every kind of deviant, crack smoking, people are fucking in front of each other. There's like drug addicts, and it's so overblown. Like, I get pissed. You're trying to make all these people the most disgusting scum ever. So he goes in this bathroom, he meets Zorro, and Zorro is like, yo, I can get you all these girls you need. And then he's like, what about, do you have crack? Because I don't know why you think he wants crack right now, but he gets the crack. He basically makes a sex worker appointment.
A reservation, if you will.
A reservation.
So after doing his, I guess what it is, reconnaissance, he is back at home and he is in his lab again, and he has the TV on, and he's clearly tweaking on something, and you're like, what is that? Because he also bought a bag of crack, what turns out to be crack, from Zorro, the pimp. He's got the TV on while he's working in the lab, and so it is tuned in to a local news station where this local organization that is advocating for sex worker rights and basically the legalization of sex work. And then this fucking asshole, white guy, super tall, really weird and creepy, is arguing against it. And the argument that the woman is making, who is representing Hooker, is saying, they're given drugs to be taken control of. They're being taken advantage, they're being abused, like they need rights. This needs to be legalized, and so, the guy is trying to demonize this, but while Jeffrey is working in the lab, we don't know what he's working on until he's like, no, listen to her, she's right. And then he is like, this is controlling women. This is killing women. And he's referencing the crack that he bought from Zorro. And so he pulls up a larger dish of even bigger crack and says, but I need this super crack to help and to, lure these women to help me recreate Elizabeth. So that's super where crack. he sort of rationalizes that, this crack and these pimps would have killed these women anyway. And so he's going to use this super crack to lure and sedate sex workers so he can take their body parts.
Blaine, say super crack again.
Super crack.
He murders his own guinea pig with said super crack.
Oh my god!
Explodes it. He Toby in threat level midnights it.
He fake lobotomizes himself again.
Again without blood.
So Jeffrey goes back dressed as a doctor with the headlamp. They call him Dr. Jersey Boy. The main sex worker introduces him in a montage, which includes Snow, Sugar, and Murphy. Oh, I love that. Murphy! He begins to measure their legs, arms, nipples, and butt cheeks. He says, I like your tattoo. And she says, he's talking about the Zorro tattoo that we know is a scar. And she says, wait till you see the one I have on my groin. Just like that.
And I was just like, oh, honey.
I've never heard nipples related to in terms of their buoyancy.
Has
anybody? You have? Okay.
Of course you have, Emily.
I mean, I'll float.
You know how I have referred to my nipples in terms of buoyancy before? I'll tell you. I have big boobs. That's a thing that is true.
Very
when
true.
you lie in a jacuzzi tub, I always judge how deep the tub is on whether or not my boobs can reach the top.
So the deeper the tub, the higher the boobs?
So my tub is not deep enough that if I lay down, my boobs still float. Doug and I are remodeling our bathroom after quarantine is over. We're doing a full remodel, by the way, we decided, and putting in like a big ass wet room sauna
Good
tub.
for you.
Oh, baby.
So nipple buoyancy is going to be through the goddamn roof.
My nipples are never covered in my tub ever. So I'm just sitting there like freezing.
Same.
This scene where Jeffrey is putting check marks on all the body parts he likes is as a woman with insecurity that grew up just not happy with my body, it made me truly sad because I actually thought that a guy would love that idea.
Do that.
And that pissed me
absolutely
the fuck off.
I was honestly really mad that they didn't use the opportunity to use the phrase check out that ass.
Yeah.
And I'm offended.
I was the one who was captivated by the woman who did like the peck popping thing with her boobs.
Yes.
Oh my god.
Mm-hmm. I know, it was amazing.
During this whole montage, like he's checking off body parts, he is deciding what does what, and he's taking notes, but also it's like very gratuitous. It is disgusting. So after he wraps up, he is getting ready to leave, and he says, I can't make a decision. And so they're like, quick, hurry up. You only have 30 minutes to do all of this, and then we need to get back to work.
Right.
And so he's like, I'm sorry, I just can't. And so like they take his bag and they're rifling through it and they find the super crack. And they fucking lose their minds. And they just start doing crack all over the place. Suddenly they have spoons, there are pipes, and it's
amazing.
Crazy. And they go nuts. So like one thing I said was 2 girls start making out and he screams, your body wasn't meant to do that.
Right, which like, yes, it was. That's exactly what it was meant to do. Also, you hired 7 sex workers. What do you think was going to happen?
He says, you're like cats on catnip.
Yes!
And P.S. he says when they first start, like, they find the crack and they primally scream, he says, you're playing the devil's music, and the lyrics of the song says, safe sex is for wimps. in a rap vibe.
It says, always carry a gun. Safe sex is lame. Anyone can drive sober. Driving drunk is skill.
As they're doing the super crack and making out and running around naked, he says, there are programs you guys can check into, like you were not 12 minutes ago trying to fucking chop these motherfuckers up.
Exactly.
Here's the thing, though.
Get the
I
fuck
still
outta
think
here.
that his original intention was only to kill one. Because when they pull out the super crack, he's like, no, that was only for the winner. That was only for one of you.
They have done this super crack, and we saw what happened to good old guinea pig. They begin to explode like fembots filled with firecrackers.
Like aerosol can.
My husband walked downstairs just as this happened. He's like, oh, it's fembots.
Sora was like, I'm going to go upstairs and fucking check this out. It's been too long. And he opens the door and gets hit in the fucking head by a fucking head. And goes down. That's it. That's all it took.
Only way I want to go down is from another person's head hitting my head. Jeffrey then examines the damage of all the exploded sex workers, and he says, this destroyed my soul. I think this was the last nail in my brain. He says, don't worry, I'll make you all feel like little girls again.
Woof.
He keeps telling the body parts to relax. He's like, we're gonna get home, guys. Don't worry.
I mean, they're still women.
So he gets home, and he is
God.
with all the body parts.
Bucket of
And
titty.
is it just me, or that he is like soldering them together, and that does
He's
not make
soldering
sense?
them. And it's funny too, because like he has a lot to choose from, and so he makes like a big pile of titties, and he's
that
trying
was my
to
favorite.
like the way that they were like encased.
It was weird,
then-
like they had a bottom, like a
Right,
pancake.
right. Somehow maybe the explosion cauterized the wound.
Stitches of Anarchy is an incredible Etsy shop that offers beautiful art pieces and embroidery. My favorite is the Bat Gothic lace embroidery. There's also palmistry diagrams, all kinds of things. I love the embroidered hoop that features the lettering dead inside in like a blood drip font with red rose heart around it. It's adorable, and I want it for my room. So definitely check it out. The prices are super fair. I myself have been dabbling in embroidery as the quarantine has gone on, and I can tell you right now, each of these pieces probably takes hours upon hours to perfect. Definitely check it out. Get some new art for your little witch space. You can visit them at Stitches of Anarchy on Etsy.
He like goes to the feet and he's like, this one has bunions, and then he starts giving them pedicures.
He is literally getting the bunions off.
And then he dumps all the excess body parts into the deep freezer that he was keeping his beloved in while he assembles his dream girl.
He's putting the parts together, and he's picking out all the things he likes, and he's like, oh, this one, and oh, this one. And then he says, and I know you fucking caught this, he says, one final detail. And he's referring to his fiance's fucking head. That's the final detail?
That's
the most
the final
important part,
detail.
apparently.
It's her face and her brain.
And he drops her head before he puts it on the body.
Yes! When he pulls her head out of the liquid to, like, you know, reanimate her, her hair's dry.
Well, and that's where I think it was filmed in reverse.
Yes.
I love it.
Just says, I hope I'm doing the right thing. And I'm like, well, obviously, there's no question of that.
Right,
You're
murder
doing the
7
right thing,
people.
obviously. Not a problem.
Accidentally kill your wife.
Opens this garage, and he lifts the body of this thing out of the garage. Lightning then strikes it. The lightning transfers from that body to the rest of the body parts in the fridge.
Well, and it was like not even in the house. It was raised at least 150 feet outside of the house, like directly to the lightning bolt. It was nuts.
The storm shocks the freezer thingy and everything else in the lab. So Elizabeth is wearing like a little mermaid bra.
Yep.
Bralette thingy.
Comes back down standing, though. That's creepy.
Standing, huge tickle bitties. And she asks if he has any money and then knocks him out. And he goes down like a fucking bag of potatoes.
The first place I was like, yes!
Barely hits him, but you get the understanding here that I think that she might have supernatural strength. Just takes like a slight swing of the arm to like, also he's a bitch.
And she has purple hair at this point, and she's
She has
wearing
purple
these
hair.
fabulous
She's
shoes.
Amazing. Fabulous shoes. And also I love she does do that like twitchy nature when she
Yes.
first gets reanimated, very Bride of Frankenstein.
Mm-hmm.
Her facial expressions, her
Oh,
acting in this
She was the best
movie.
part of this movie.
She did everything right. She deserves some recognition for the
It
work
made
in
it
this.
fun.
Which it really did. She did such a beautiful job. I can't get over it.
And at least
Yep.
now you begin to get a sense of we're getting payback for all the nonsense. Even when she knocks him out, you feel better already.
55 minutes into the movie, something interesting happens.
She immediately leaves and heads to
Nice.
New York on the subway. The makeup was by Gabe Bartalos, was the makeup
I love
artist.
it.
Fun fact, the director was not able to afford the price to film on the actual subway, so they rented a half a subway car from MTA Repair, and it was covered in graffiti, and I sent you guys some photos before the episode of like
Yeah.
the behind
Yeah.
the scenes, which I love those. They put it on a flatbed truck. They parked it on Liberty Island across from the Hudson, and they shot in there. And they shot the scene of her wandering. I loved it. I loved her face. I loved like the little electric shock she got.
She was hot and horrifying.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, people
Like,
were
yeah.
terrified of her, but also clearly turned on. Fucking Jeffrey Schmo is waking up in the lab like, oh, what happened? And the fridge or the freezer is like a rockin'.
Yep.
So clearly whatever was in there has also been reanimated at this point.
Oh,
And
you
then
can't wait.
Frankengirl is like accosting tourists with like bits of lines from each girl. And
Yep.
then some fucking Costco brand Danny DeVito meets George Costanza.
Oh, God.
And then
Yes.
Had a Baby with Newman comes in. And he's just like,
Yes.
I love you, I love you, I love you. And she's like, that's cute. And she suddenly has purple nippies, which I am here for.
She takes
And
him
she,
to
my
the
God.
so she takes him to the Sultry
flop house.
Arms Hotel. The way they did the body makeup to make her appear
Ugh.
dead was cool
Mm.
because they did give her purple nips. They gave it like the nipples suffocated.
I loved
It
it.
was so
I don't
great.
care what it
I
was.
want purple nips. She takes Danny DeVito up to, it's not really Danny DeVito. Okay,
I
calm down.
wish.
She takes him up to a room in Zorro's Bordello, is what I'm calling it. And so she is basically, like Emily said, reciting all these old lines from her previous coworkers. And so he takes that as her role playing, and she shoves him on the bed, and he's like, oh my God, give me more. And so she takes off her top, and she's got the beautiful purple nips.
Beautiful nips.
Zorro's Bordello sounds like a great John Grisham novel.
It
Oh my
sounds
God,
like
yes.
a great place for spaghetti. Like, I want
Mhm.
the spaghetti from there.
Oh, Zorro's Bordello.
She mounts Danny DeVito. She is down to nothing, and her ass has those little lines on them that are like stretch marks, but not stretch marks. And that's like what I have. And that made me feel really good about my
I
butt.
love it. I love it.
And that butt still has a check mark, so it's perfect.
And also, Blaine has
Ba-boom.
the perfect butt that I've ever seen in my life. So
Blaine.
Elizabeth mounts Danny DeVito. Apparently
forgot.
sex
You're
is
the best.
happening, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just grinding, like we only see, like, apparently she's bare, but he's in his boxers, but there's that flap, so I don't know what's happening.
yeah.
She is caressing his neck in a way that's making you think maybe she's choking him, but there's no actual force behind it, so you're like, what is happening here? And she's like repeating former lines and stuff, and he's like, oh my God, he's loving it and whatever. And then suddenly you see the electricity go through his head, and then he explodes first through his nipples, and then his head pops off, and then his head talks, like, and he says that was great or something like that.
He
And
said
you're
that
like,
was
what?
wonderful. You get the sense now that her superpower is she is electrically charged, and if you fucking touch her, you're gonna die.
And I am all about that shit.
I claim power through this thing that I thought was horrible, but can actually like help me defeat creepy men.
So then Jeffrey drives into the city, double parks like a hoe, and then runs around New York City asking people if they've seen a woman with black arm and purple hair and a Swedish guy. He's like, what are you, some kind of Swede? We're in Times Square. And it's like, motherfucker. Norwa. No. She's still in the hotel, and then this other guy, this guy comes out of his room, and he's like, oh, you know what would look
This
good on you? My
ponytail
tongue.
creep.
And he kisses her, and then his head fucking explodes out the window, falls into a New York City trash can, and nobody gives a shit.
I have a
love it.
tradition of saying a certain word every episode. Bye-bye. She yeets his head into a
Yeet it.
trash can,
You did.
and nobody
Yeet!
gives a fuck. Meanwhile, Frankengirl is roaming the streets, marketing the old-fashioned way by yelling about selling her pussy in the goddamn streets.
Like a fucking newsboy.
Anybody
She's
want a
like,
date?
we got a pussy here. Anybody need a pussy? We got pussy for sale
Pussy,
here.
pussy.
2 pussies for $1.
It's literally like From Dusk Till Dawn. Pussy, pussy, pussy. We have
Pussy,
every
pussy.
pussy. Dirty pussy, smelly pussy,
Yep.
nice pussy, stinky pussy. It's a lot of pussy.
I had a carnival barker for my pussy.
I feel like
I
that's
would-
just me 7 days of the week. Like it
It
changes.
is.
Yeah.
Can we just each be each other's pussy hype girl?
We are
Like,
best.
Blade's pussy's fucking amazing.
That wouldn't be changing our relationship
That wouldn't
at
be.
all.
Jeffrey goes back to the area with the sex workers and asks
Yeah.
if anyone's seen Elizabeth. She is at the Huevos Grande bar, and she finds some goddamn pretzels.
The bar owner lady is like arm wrestling people, like discount Freddie Mercury's, and then
Yes.
not intentionally trying to take guys home. I think she's just regurgitating these lines. And there's
yeah.
that fucking creepy guy doing the heroin lean in front of the pretzel. And he's just like, hello, baby, you must be new because I've never seen you here before. And he's like such a fucking creep. He wants to take her home, but then like decides to just go to a back table. But not
Oh,
before the bar owner is like, you
my-
better lay off on those pretzels. And she's like,
Even the women gotta hate on each other in this goddamn movie. Come on, come on.
did she not have a
It's
pretzel?
a pretzel. This is my favorite scene in the whole movie.
So is he going down on her?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
Yes.
which is so tough for me because I was like, okay, just say it. Just like do it. Just like show him under the table like you've shown everything else.
He definitely was eating her pussy, and he gets electrocuted. Loved
Poetic
it.
Justice.
Zora proceeds to knock her goddamn head off its bobber, starts electrocutifying the whole goddamn bar, and everybody's running out.
I do love
And-
the line that he drops right before he knocks her head off, which is, where'd you get this arm? That's one of my bitch's arms. Like
Yeah.
that's happened before. Like, oh,
Yeah.
where'd you get one of my bitch's arms? And then
Oh,
her
you
captain
found it
gets
on
to change
eBay.
it.
You didn't buy this? Fuck you.
I love that
So good.
Jeffrey, when he makes his way into the bar in his surgical gear covered in blood, he says it's like a soccer match in here.
Ugh,
Uh,
someone kill him.
he takes her and they leave. He puts her head back on.
Mhm.
They go to his car, and Zorro grabs a cab immediately and
Yep.
follows them back. I've never seen soldering used so heavily on
Oh, I know.
unsolderable things.
Cut to he is putting her head back on,
Mm-hmm.
and so he's also like putting the bolts on. So then you're like, oh yeah, Frankenstein's monster. Bah, bah, bah.
As if we didn't get it
and-
yet.
Blues Clues.
Blues Clues.
He decides to put these bolts on to keep her head together, and then he has to run the electricity again. And so when he runs that, he's also like really close to the freezer where he has these other body parts, and you keep thinking like, okay, maybe they're gonna make an appearance or whatnot. And they do a really great job of teasing us with that. So he runs the electricity, and Elizabeth is just sitting there, and you're like, okay, so like that's it. That's it for Elizabeth 2.0. But then he starts talking about how like he should have done something or blah, blah, blah. And then she responds as Elizabeth, as his former fiance. And we realize that extra jolt is all she needed to come back
Ugh.
as herself to this relationship and to be caught up on what exactly happened to her.
He says, maybe I had to do a few unorthodox things.
Okay, so he gives her what, 3 minutes to come back to life until he pronounces her dead for life. If that's as hard as he works to get her to live, I don't want to see how hard he works to get her to come. Like, girls never had an orgasm.
Well, he
Oh
was
my
covered in naked women and he just kept yelling at them. That's all you need to know.
They interject this tiny bit of science where you don't need it now because the film is essentially over. He says, this blood serum is estrogen based, so I can't use it on anything but women's body parts.
You have estrogen, you asshole. You can
Yeah.
get breast cancer.
Zorro comes in and within a second delicately taps off the head of Jeffrey. And he can tell that Elizabeth is made out of all of his sex workers' body parts, or his, quote unquote. So he says, well, I know what you need. And he gets out the crack, because that's all he's
This-
got. All that sweet, not the super crack, just his regular ass crack. And then This scene, the only thing that saves the movie for me. Freezer opens as Zorro is making his way. He hears it moving, and the body parts come out of all the sex workers, and all the parts are congealed onto each other. So you got a tit thing, chest, torso, hand thing, a foot, stomach, face thing. This is The Thing, the movie The Thing on Super Crack.
When I was a little girl, I would go to my grandmother's house.
I'm so worried about where this is going.
Yeah.
And like, you know, when you're poor, you don't know you're poor.
Yes.
Like you just think everyone is. Tomato soup is just ketchup and water.
Yeah.
Or in this case, your aunt was a beautician at one point in time, and you couldn't afford toys, so you would just play with her old mannequins, and you thought everyone just had like a drawer of mannequins at their house they could play with, and that was a normal thing. And then when you went to your friend Sarah's house and was like, "Hey Sarah, where's your mannequin drawer?" She was like, "What's a mannequin drawer?" And you're like, "You know, that drawer of mannequins that you play with." And she was like, "No." And you're like, "Yeah, me neither." Ha ha ha. And then Sarah didn't invite you over anymore. So like, you know, when that happened.
I can't handle this.
Oh man, I wish we met when we were tiny children, because I would have loved you so hard.
Like, because they had names. Like, Lisa was the one with the, like, lady mullet and the
Bridget.
eyeshadow.
They take Zorro, this huge man, and all the weird, crazy body parts, tits on top of tits on top of tits. It's like a Tyga music video. They drag his ass back into the fridge, and the last line you hear, a hand reaches out, grabs the crack, and says, "Anybody got a stem?" Oh, God.
Such a mood.
The last scene of the movie is Elizabeth takes Jeffrey's decapitated head and decides she's going to rebuild him. And we're led to believe that because Zorro's parts were taken into the freezer, that she's going to use Zorro's parts to rebuild Jeffrey to remake her perfect man, because that's what he did with her. But since Jeffrey's blood serum is estrogen based, it can only reanimate woman parts. So Jeffrey awakens to Elizabeth's voice, and we find that Elizabeth used all of the leftover parts that were in the freezer from former sex workers to reanimate him. And she's like, "Oh, but you know, your blood serum was estrogen based, so I just used all of these parts." And so we're left to see fucking Jeffrey clutching his vagina, trying to hide himself and shield himself from the form he's taken on, because he realizes that now he has woman parts, and now he's ashamed of his fucking form.
Also, his body is sexy as fuck.
So
it's gorgeous. His head is the worst fucking part.
Cut that head off again.
Here's how this movie could have been perfect. He gets a sex worker that's plus sized, and then he gets her body.
Yes.
Oh, that would have been fabulous.
That would have been perfect.
And
like, because he obviously, like, his fiance was plus size and she had to deal with that. And now he gave her the body he always wanted her to have. And then she's like, "Here's my body, bitch."
she specifically says, "Well, Jeffrey, what I did might have been a bit unorthodox, but it's worth
like,
it,
she
and
knows.
you're alive, and I love you, and that's all that matters." And then he's looking at his tits, and he puts out the most bullshit little fucking idiot scream you ever heard. And boom, done. She reveals it to him by like a full-length mirror, and you see him. And there's so many questions. Guys, what did you think about this?
How many purple nipples?
Oh, crack nipples. Yes.
I am going to give this movie a 5 because I enjoyed it. I had a good time. It's very, very problematic, but I do think that it was bad in light of itself in some ways. It addressed, because the ending makes me believe that the filmmakers knew that what they were doing was shitty. They kind of redeemed their sins a little bit with the ending. And I like a B-rated horror movie. I mean, I had a good time watching it. I'd watch it again.
So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 purple crack nipples. There were many redeeming parts of this. There were many feminist like jabs. I don't think any of it was intentional. I do believe that the people who made this movie were pigs. I do believe that the treatment of the sex workers involved was shitty. It didn't pass the Bechdel test. It didn't scare me. And while Elizabeth's, the character's performance was beautiful, and we did get a taste of B horror movies, this is more of a film in what not to do in horror. Yeah, so I had fun, but this gets a 6 out of 10 for me.
I got yours right, Blaine. I thought Emily was going to go for a 4, but she went one higher. So I was very close.
That was so close.
I'm going to give it a 4.5. It is a misogynistic piece of grindhouse. It's dark. It's twisted. There is social commentary in this. You got some retribution at the end.
Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
That made it worth it. If you didn't get that, I wouldn't have liked it. I relate to her in the sense of a woman that has always not felt at ease in her body.
Do you understand that? But I feel like it should have been fleshed out a little more.
Yeah, and we could have spent less
that makes
time
sense?
on fucking Jeffrey being a fucking douche. Yeah,
Less time on
exactly.
super crack and more time on woman's crack.
She's wonderful. I just don't really care.
Yeah.
It's not a movie that I need to see more than once because I get it.
Each of our arguments for Elizabeth and for the film as a whole are incredibly valid. And I think had the movie been made by anyone but white men, those arguments would be invalid. Those points would be addressed, and we would see more of a satisfying resolution. All of this would have been superfluous if sex work were legal.
Yeah.
So legalize sex work.
This would have benefited so greatly from a different perspective. One could argue from the most important perspective in the film, which is from a female's.
My brother's a screenwriter, and he's been involved in projects that have lasted quite a long time, and there's a lot of rewrites and shit. And I'm just so fascinated at, like, what must have been the process. And if any, were there any
was
changes?
It money?
Yeah, were there were there changes to the script over the time? Did things evolve?
Editing?
Like, I'm just,
Fashion?
I wonder what made the cut and what didn't. And goddamn, this is what made the cut. You know?
Or did they like shoot it all and then run out of money and then just had to wait 5 years and then pick it back up and then ran into more shit? I don't know what that 12 years is comprised of. It's fun. Watch it knowing that like you should also tip your sex workers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And protect trans kids.
Love you guys.
Love you.
Love you.
Bye.